Welcome back. 9:47. A little bit of change. Michael Gebben in studio. And, it's been about, a year and a half since you've been back? And
let's see, what was that I was on for? I can't remember specifically, but probably,
yeah, it's been a while.
Years here.
And, honestly, it's great to see you're still obviously working as
I'm still plugging away. I mean, I've been a little dark on the internet, I think, for the last few years.
It was a little quiet.
Yeah,
but,
which is partly in tune with this.
Well, honestly, you did a pause practice.
That's right. That's right. I wrote a book because I've been on a pause professionally for probably 3 years. I mean, I've still been doing video production work. You just brought up my wife's Etsy business. Yeah. She's hit 75,000 sales on her Etsy store. I've still been living life, and personally, I've been in many ways happier than I've ever been. But professionally, I hit a tipping point, and that's where this book came along over the last few years. So.
Well, let's explore that because you were going nonstop. There's all these different books and different projects you were working on and collaborations. And take me to that tipping point. Was it just an overload?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the more I study trauma and the mind, psychology, I mean, I feel like there's this page in the book that takes half the page of just all the stuff I've explored in the last 12 years. But I was the massive imperfect action guy. I mean, that was my thing. Go, action. I really, although I inspired people to take action, I never fully related with people who maybe weren't taking action. Like I could inspire them, but I was always the guy who took action. I mean, when I started my company, Gebb's Total Video back in 2006, I just went full bore. And I kept that up the better part until really about 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And, people died, business partnerships failed, different things happened. And what I've learned about the brain is that ultimately, I call them stove moments. I talk about in the book. Yeah. So you touch a stove, brain says, don't do that again. Well, some people can touch a stove a lot more than others. And I just had so many things that stacked that ultimately my brain just went into productive mode, and that's procrastination. That's why I was in the brain scan. Yes, I was like, it just hit me. So I got brain scans. I talk about that in the book, all these things to figure out what is going on. I'm procrastinating more than I ever had in my life, and I realized that it says on the front of the book, it's not our fault, it's our default, and you can change the result. So a lot of people, their anxiety, their stress, the procrastination, all these things, like I say, procrastination is a protector. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think it's being lazy or that people are intentionally doing this, but they're not. And the brain's trying to protect itself, and so it goes in and it thinks that this is a threat, whatever it is, even though there's not a bear, there's not a lion in front of us, but even coming on here, I can have a little bit of nerves.
Right.
But those nerves for a lot of people literally paralyze them and stop them. So
well, and honestly, what I think so fascinating about that is it's because people experience that feeling differently. Mm-hmm. Not everyone's going to experience that feeling of being stuck or hitting that plateau, as fear or anxiety. They could just experience it as Groundhog Day, and you're getting through life, brother. And
that's very true. I mean, a lot of people, for one reason or another, I've been able to still survive and get along, but at the same time, professionally, I had done so much that there was a.
That's what I was going to ask you, not to cut you off. Because
please cut me off over and over again anytime. I can go on. I can talk the whole time.
But because you've done so many different projects with, huge names from, Tony
Robbins and been to Richard Branson's Island, a lot of cool things. Yeah.
And so that's where my thought is, you do all this stuff and you're like, what's next? Where do you go from here?
Yeah. Well, that's a part too that I think, especially in these high performers, high achievers that I look for is sometimes you reach these mountaintops and then it's like you're always trying to climb another mountain, but eventually you're like, what do I keep doing? How do I up myself?
Yeah.
And I did go through a period of time where that was challenging because it's like you come back to everyday life, which is really part of the book as well. I went to all these seminars and I was sometimes the attendee, but more times than not, I was filming.
Yeah.
And I'm getting these testimonials and all these things. And then I'm seeing people sometimes year after year and sometimes for 5 to 8 years and no progress has been made. And what I found is that it's like pre-production and post-production. Life happens in the production phase. There's the everyday stuff. You get pulled out in traffic. Your wife's irritable. Your husband's irritable. Whatever. The things are happening. And these seminars, you're safe in the room. So you're vulnerable. Oh my God. The thing I heard over and over again is, I've met my people. My people are here. But you come back to life and people are like, you drank the Kool-Aid, right? And they start judging you and shaming you and whatever else. And then you default right back to everything that you already were doing and nothing changes. So people have all this insight without the integration of this information. And so that's where I kept just exploring all these things and connecting the dots and figuring out, okay, that's what's been missing from me in my life. I've done so much kind of accidentally, but like my default when it came to taking action wasn't something that like that was a default. It wasn't a learned thing. It wasn't something I got inspired to take all this action. Like if you take my brother, he's got a great memory.
Yeah.
I would say
great golfer too.
Hey, what's that?
Great golfer.
He's
too.
a great golfer. He is a great golfer. A great memory, and I would say mine's improved with certain things, but I don't.
Yeah.
And he didn't work at having a great memory. It's not like he went to memory training school to have a great memory, and then I went to some school to destroy my memory. It's just those were our defaults. But if I want to have a better memory, I have to work at it. And so a lot of people where the anxiety's taken over, the procrastination, the stuckness, it's happened not from their fault. It's just been a default that's happened through life, and that's what their life, their body has done to them. But to override it, you can. It just takes practice.
Well, and see, that's what I find fascinating is the development of this book after just hearing a couple of those, your thoughts on it is, when you're starting to write this and explore the book, did you have to rewrite the book at all, or were you kind of pretty dead set when you got going?
Well, I mean, the irony is I went on a podcast. If anybody's heard of Simon Sinek or Brene Brown, there was a podcast by a guy named Jonathan Fields of the Good Life Project. And interestingly enough, a picture that I posted of my grandpa on 2013.
Yeah.
I just posted, it was like, it showed up in my Facebook memories a couple days ago. And he saw this picture and said, I'd love to have you on this podcast. And I immediately recorded all these videos, got them transcribed, and sent them to people. I'm like, I got to have a book if I go on this big podcast. And that was in 2013. And I never had a physical book on Amazon. I never got a physical book done. I sent it to some people, and nobody really gave me any feedback, and I just moved on. Mm-hmm. And so flash forward, I ultimately, what was the question again? I'm going off track here. I want to make sure I'm talking about
the rewrite, process.
So the rewrite. So I've been joking. This has been written since 2014, 2013. Gotcha. That's what I wanted to tell you.
Gotcha.
So then, but moving forward, I mean, the book that's in people's hands now, I actually published at the beginning of June, and there was 15 different uploads before I even started sharing it with anybody. I didn't start sharing this or really promoting it, honestly, till I went on Mark Ellerbrock's show about a week and a half ago, and that was really when I started pushing it. I got in some people's hands because what happened was I had the Cry Wolf going on.
Yeah.
The amount of times I made book covers and said I'd do something. I mean, I'd done a lot and followed through, but there's been many things I hadn't. This, I didn't tell anybody. My wife knew, and no one else knew, and some of my closest people, when I actually had it, they're like, where'd that come from? And I was just like, I'm just going to do this. And then I'm going to share it, and I'm going to move forward.
Well, and I think that's such a fascinating point, too, because a lot of us, I think, fall into that category, especially with this generation, because of the social media age and trying to update
Instant
the world.
gratification.
And the accountability of that is really important, I think, too, because sometimes we're so much more focused on letting people know about the journey than the finished product.
Well, I heard something the other day, and it talked about the dreamers and the doers, and the dreamers are mentally busy, and the doers are physically busy.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's this aspect at times that when we buy a book, when we go to the seminar, when we post the thing on the internet, our brain says, I did it.
Yeah.
And that's why you can hear people go, well, I already know that. You can hear, there's not necessarily, out of this world things in there that probably people have never heard in their entire life. It's all connected in a way to hopefully bring. I also wrote it in a way, talk about the ADHD and the brain scans. I just had a comment today on my for my book launch party I'm going to hold, and she's like, my ADHD brain got through this with no problem. And that's been half a dozen people have said that because I wrote it in a way. If you open it up and look at how the pages, there's not these huge,
no, it's not,
hard pages. You can get quick wins and get through it pretty, fast. So I wrote it that way specifically first for me because I'm like, I have a hard time reading books. But to just distill that all down and connect the dots. But I keep saying people don't have a knowledge problem. They have a practice problem. Yeah. Because showering, and this is the thing I think we forget about the mind, is you can't shower once or shower hundreds of times and then not shower anymore and stay clean.
Yeah.
And so I think the thing is a lot of people, whether it's their health, relationships, business, or whatever, we have these insights and these breakthroughs, but then there's no practice afterwards. So we just have the aha, and then everything stays the same.
Do you think it's because the aha sometimes feels like that gratifying factor, oh, it's been something I've been searching for, we're here, and then we haven't broken out of the routine, though?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. I mean, the more you study the brain, I mean, there is an aspect of thinking almost you've done the thing, and it's like a light switch. I've now figured it out. I know it. But it's like riding a bike or guitar or anything else, watching, or even people are into sports. You can watch thousands of hours of sports games, but you're not necessarily, if you don't play the sport, you're not gonna be great at the sport. Right. And so I think that's the thing that happens is we think we know something. We think we understand something. We think we even are doing the thing. But again, I say if you snap at your partner, it's not that you're not going to default and have that snap. Yeah. It's if it ruins your whole day. Like there's so many things that you're going to still, even when you go through the practice, go ahead if you got a question.
No, you're fine. It just brought up a good point. Keep going.
Yeah, is that I still get triggered. I still have things, but it doesn't ruin the entire day. Like there's things even just as simple as like my wife and I, there's a little segment in the book about putting up wallpaper. And it's just like, that can be a frustrating thing. She's like, you don't want to test your marriage, put wallpaper up. Right. And it's like, but we can have the frustration, but it's only in that moment. And then we can quickly come back to the center and move on with our day. And not suppression either. Like there's the expression of things. We're not just hiding our true feelings.
Well, and now here's where I find it fascinating, just hearing you again, going deeper and deeper into this, is the fact that once you're at this point where, you aren't getting what you need out of, life, career, the relationship, whatever you're at, the plateau, the metaphorical, kind of fork in the road, whenever you know what's going on, when you identify it,
but awareness.
And you still don't know, all right, how do I conquer this?
Yes.
Did you have to go through that at any point in time when you're doing this? Because you're so active, and you pause professionally a little bit. Is it like, man, I know what's going on here, but I can't fix it? And then how do you break through that glass ceiling?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, so much of my life, I've been this like jump starter. Yeah. You plug the cables in and like somebody's life is quote unquote better. But imagine you've got your car and need air in the tires and you're still plugging jumper cables into the tires. Right. And that's all I did my whole life. So you take somebody like my wife who, in certain situations has a lot of anxiety, and the inspiration, the encouragement, the like, it's okay. It wasn't helping. And there was different, and that's what these last 3 years wasn't just her and then me even procrastinating. Other people I was kind of working with, coaching, there was things I was seeing where I'm like, okay, the jump starter energy, just this motivation, inspiration is not working.
Right.
Like it works with certain people because if your battery's dead, you can jump them and get them going.
Right.
But some people, there's deeper stuff going on. And so, for example, my wife had to go to jury duty just this week, and she'd been building up for a month of, it's going to give me anxiety.
Yep.
And even though she knows some of this, and I do too, and it's all a practice, and there's no shame, there's no judgment. But what was interesting is the morning of, she starts scratching and she gets this rash. And what I've learned with the mind-body connection is that was the body distracting the mind from the emotional anxiety that she couldn't deal with. And then when I went through the practice, so you take a pause, take a breath, and you reflect on it. But you've got to tell yourself you're safe, because your brain is ultimately, you've trained it. It's like planting watermelons and then expecting apples. Like you're telling yourself, I'm anxious. I never works. I can't get through this. And then you get to that situation, because then it was like that day. So now all of a sudden the body's like, this is a threat. This is a danger. You've told me it's a danger, it's a threat. So then to reverse that, and she was able to mitigate, almost eliminate it within an hour. It went down. Now, I think if she didn't have this, she would have just kept spiraling and the day would have got worse and worse. And she had a little micro flare up during the little thing when she went there, but overall she was able to control it. Now, I'll give one more quick story about us and how we can retrain the brain. So, and how we train people how to treat us. So when it came to money, in the very beginning, I would tell my wife the truth, but it didn't really seem to matter how much money we had. It would cause her anxiety. Yeah. Like if we had a good chunk of money and we'd be good for a while, she'd still be like, oh, don't tell me that. And she
don't want to hear it.
Don't want to hear it. And so that reaction that she would give would train me, well, you know what? Telling the truth is actually a threat. Mm-hmm. So now I'm only figuring all this out in hindsight. Yeah, gotcha. And some of it happened kind of accidentally. And then I'm like, oh, I did what I'm doing in this practice here, but kind of accidentally fell upon it. Now you can do this intentionally, regularly. But so what happened is then I started lying. Well, you get caught lying, that's even worse than potentially telling the truth, right? And so, but you might get caught less lying, and you're safer more often, except for if, that the lie gets found out, that might put it over the edge.
Right.
But so what happened is I had to learn to explain to her why I was lying, and how the reaction had made me feel it was unsafe to share. Now, this wasn't something I was consciously thinking about the whole time, but once I figured it out and connected the dots, I was able to explain that, and we both could practice being able to, one, me tell the truth again, and 2, her have a different reaction to the truth.
Yeah.
And from that, she's gotten to a place where we could have no money and she'd be like, all right, what do we got to do?
Right.
And stay calm. And that is a huge growth for someone who really had a massive anxiety and fear around money and not having enough of it. And to see her change and others change, this is one example, but there's so many like that, but it takes the practice again. This isn't a one-time rep. Like we didn't have one conversation.
Right.
And then the next time it was perfect.
Well, I think that's the problem. It goes back into our instant gratification thing on social media. We need an answer right away because we're in this world of now. Yep. And it's the same thing internally 10 times worse because then you have the internal judgment or the internal thoughts that go through and all that fun stuff. And you're like, man, come on. I did the 10-minute YouTube video. I learned how to change the oil here. But my car still ain't running right.
Yeah,
you know
right, exactly. Yeah, because you got to practice changing that oil more than one time. You might have a little issues.
Right.
You know, and that's it. And I've seen that. And it's in all day, every day, there's situations that are coming up where people have the opportunity to do the pause. Now, sometimes it can be a longer thing and more reflective. Sometimes it's you take what you need in the moment. Like sometimes people are going to, in public, in front of a bunch of people, go, I'm safe.
Right.
Like it might be a smaller thing and just internal. You might put your hand on your chest, but you need to be able to train your brain that in these scenarios that are automatically triggering and creating stress or anxiety, that it is safe, that there's not a threat. But your brain, and usually it's coming from childhood and youth or just some one moment when, a teacher did something. I know people who've had, trauma their entire life that was from one moment that happened in 7th grade. And what I found though, is you don't need to go back to 7th grade and figure out, what it was at 8:15 in 3rd grade and and to be able to get through these things each moment. Like that moment with my wife is a moment to go through the practice and getting pulled out in traffic and you ruin your whole day and tell everybody about it nonstop. Like that can become something that you get to a point where it just passes.
And that's what's so fascinating about this pause concept in this pause practice book is the fact that, that couple of moments or, it don't matter what time period of that pause is. It could be a 10th of a second. It could be 10 minutes. It could be, it could be 10 years. Who knows?
For me, it was 3 years there for a little bit.
Well, and see, it's all dependent on the situation, I'm sure. But I mean, even if you take it down to the day-to-day life, I mean, hell, sometimes we wake up, we have a bad night of sleep or something happens yesterday. We wake up anxious or, it's little things. If we don't take that pause, it could be an awful day for 8 hours at work. Or it could be a great one because you just take a couple minutes, or you take that time.
Well, and the ability to reframe is a skill to learn. So the ability to look at something through a different lens, a different filter. I talk in the book about fact versus fiction. So like facts are universal, fiction's personal. But in the moment, there can be things that are factual. So $52 in someone's bank account is a personal fact, but it's not a universal fact. The fiction is you're going to be broke forever and things are never going to work out and you've always been poor, et cetera, right? And so that ability to catch that and recognize the inner critic is telling you you're worthless, you're never going to make any money, you're always going to be poor, but to flip that and recognize I can have the coach speak. And go, you can get through this. There's other people who've gotten through this, and to be able to continue, but you have to do it over and over again,
right?
And so a lot of people, that's a skill to learn, is to be able to reframe. Because for me, even these last 3 years, I knew I would get through it. Some people don't have that light. They're in darkness right now, and they think it will always be dark. When to me, I think there's so many examples, if we're open, that we can see that so many people have come through so many difficult times. It doesn't make it easy, but it is possible.
Well, and I think that's so important. I was reading this thing about athletes and whether or not they're a high school athlete or college athlete, like true athletes that were out there, for 9 months out of the year, travel, baseball, soccer, you name it, pick your sport. And then they get done with it and they go through all of these same issues because, they...
It's their identity.
Yeah, they had something to metaphorically chase. They knew their end goal. But it's very interesting because someone brought up the concept, well, how many times can you win the World Series and still be happy? You already did it. You achieved the mountaintop. What's next? Because there's something beyond that. And whenever it goes into this pause practice and the way that you break this down, I like the fact that you basically, in a way, kind of go through that concept of maybe you achieved it, or maybe, you're just stuck in limbo. You're stuck because, God damn, man, the HVAC just went out. And then my tires are bad. And then my oil or my car blew up. Name the circumstance. but how do I not let it affect me in my day-to-day life with my partner, my kids, or anybody else around me?
Well, and it's feeling the fullness of the emotions. I think I went through a phase where I was numb.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't numbing through drugs and alcohol or anything, but just psychologically, what happens is if you set yourself up for high expectations, like this is going to happen, you get really excited. If it doesn't, then you get extremely, like the farther you climb, the farther you can fall. So the bigger my expectation, and if it doesn't work out the way I expected it to, then the bigger the disappointment. The more that happens, sometimes it's once and then people stop, and sometimes it's many, many times, and then they stop. And I think for me, recognizing that you can find magic in the mundane. Like there is everyday things again that can be great. And we look past that. We just look at the celebrities and the superstars and the one percenters and these things. But the more I dug into all of them as well, like these people like are not the happiest people on the planet. Some are. Yeah. Like the thing is, back to fact and fiction, and kind of there being this middle ground to things, is that having a lot of money doesn't mean that people will be miserable or happy. Yeah. Not having money doesn't mean people will be miserable or happy. I know people who have 100x the amount of money in their bank account that I do, and they live like they're going to be, out homeless on the street tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
And so the money alone isn't solving people's anxiety. It usually amplifies wherever they're at in their life.
It's very fair. And honestly, I think it's so because you see all the time, and there's this video I saw, it's a viral video, but it's the influencer, he's eating his food and he has this guy filming him, and right after the camera turns off, he's like, God dang, man, I don't want to do this no more. Like, do we have to take another take of this? And it's because of this living vicariously through, our celebrities and our idols or our favorite people in a different way than any generation's ever had the chance to before.
Well, you never saw the behind the scenes, typically. You get lucky if you got a VHS or DVD that had some little 5-minute video showing like just the behind the scenes of the actual movie or something, not their life.
And then you realize that behind the scenes is still a work because it's being filmed and they're doing something for something bigger. But going into this, because we have a couple of minutes left, what is the pause practice? If we could define it in a nutshell here for people that are like, okay, these guys have been talking about a lot here in 40 and 20 minutes. If you could sum it up, what is that pause practice and how do we get this into the book form?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's to interrupt the autopilot, the automatic. That's really the goal of it, is that we are so living through our subconscious where we're just running on autopilot. Everything we do, I mean, you can be driving the same path to work, and if one day you need to take a different turn, how many times do we miss that turn because we're just running on autopilot? Gotcha. And so that ability to interrupt that, and if you want your life, if you're not satisfied with where life is, if you are feeling stuck, that ability to catch that, and then to me start to retrain and reframe what is going on. So for me, like I hadn't hardly posted any content. I wasn't doing any videos. I wasn't doing anything. And to get back into that rhythm, just to start doing it as, again, a practice. Because I think if we're looking at things as a performance, if we're looking at things as perfection, then we can do it right and wrong. And to me, if you think of the battery analogy again, like in a battery and in nature, positive and negative are both needed. They're not good and bad. And so if we think about a lot of things, it's our automatic meaning maker that is making a thing bad or good. Because some people wish to have somebody's problem because of where they're at. And so when we recognize that that's in our imagination, then it means we don't change the fact. If you got $52 in a bank account, you got $50 in a bank account. But the things of saying, I'll always be this way, it's never going to work out, will likely more keep you there than it will get you out of there. But to start to flip that is a practice. So for people to be able to know that their negative thoughts, their reactions, their emotions, the feelings that are hurting them, not helping them. We're not messing with the things that are helping us. It's the defaults that are hurting, that we can interrupt them and start to retrain them and have a life where we're, like for me, I feel the fullness of emotion and feeling again, but I can experience the upside while managing the downside. Not that I won't feel the sadness, the anger, the frustration. It just doesn't destroy me anymore and completely stop me.
Very interesting, man. Well, I wish you nothing but the best, and keep me updated on how the book's been going and all the other cool projects you got. We'll link everything in a write-up on RiverBender.com, including a link on how you can get your hands on a copy on Amazon. And then you have a upcoming book
launch. Yeah, book launch signing at Old Bakery Beer on my birthday. I'll be 39, and that's September 4th. It's a Thursday night at 6:15. So
happy early birthday.
Thanks, brother.
No ticket price or anything like that?
I haven't fully confirmed that, but there'll likely be potentially free $5 and like $15. So
really
you
cool.
can come. Yeah,
there we go. So, we'll link everything, and best of luck with the book launch.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man.
We'll take a quick break, and Lacey McDonald's going to take us back in the time machine 100 years ago right after this quick one on RiverBender.com and Roku TV.